Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. Thank you for joining us once again. We want to get right into the action. What has been plaguing the Phillies as of late? A rough go of it in Cincinnati against the Reds. Rob Thompson tells you we saw some good pitching, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper. The guy who sticks out, although he's not the only reason, the guy who sticks out the most to me for recent struggles has to be the right fielder, Nick Castellanos. We're going to get into that in depth shortly. Want to appreciate everybody for adjusting to the time this week, a 1 o'clock start as opposed to our normal 2 o'clock start. We may have a guest, Cory Nidoh, joining me later, but we definitely want to dive into the issue at hand, and that's Nick Castellanos has gone ice cold out there in the batter's box, unfortunately. So I think it's been spoken about quite a bit. Not quite ad nauseum because it is important, but Nick Castellanos really struggling as of late. It's been over a month now. He's hitting 187 since July 1st. Not going to get things done. A 210 on base, a 306 slug. That is a 516 OPS. He has 4 walks. None have come since the calendar has flipped to the month of August. That has never been his game. However, he showed a different approach early in this season. He was being a little bit more patient, a little less swing happy. We saw some great things from him early on. The slug wasn't necessarily there. If you remember, a few months ago, we went back. I wrote something at the end of June about how he had started getting a little bit more aggressive on that first pitch, but still keeping his patience throughout the rest of the at-bat. He was swinging at the first pitch through the month of May at a 52.9% rate. From the month of June, it ticked up to 62.9, but 14 of his 17 hardest hit balls had come during that month. 158 mile an hour, or excuse me, 105.8 mile an hour homer. 158 would be insane. 105.8 mile an hour homer in the 5th inning on June 30th. 19 of his 63 hits were for extra bases in the first 2 months. In the month of June, 14 of his 27 hits were for extra bases. So he had figured something out during the month of June that really started to click for him. And unfortunately, things seemed to take a turn from there. Once we flipped over to the month of July, we just went over it, but I know people are still trickling in. We're talking about a 516 OPS. That does not get it done. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. It doesn't get it done. I'm going to take a look at the team overall, and we're going to notice a trend about some of these guys. So let's go to – sorry, bringing up stats here. The slugging percentages for the team. We just mentioned the guy is slugging 516 since the start of July. So about a month and a half to this point. Looking at the rest of the team in that same time period. Slugging, an OPS of 516. The only person on the team with a worse OPS is Rafael Marchand, obviously a lot less games. Johan Rojas, who hasn't played in a little bit after getting sent down after the trade deadline, he had a 571 since the start of July. Other outfielders, Harrison Bader, who has struggled since he arrived in Philadelphia mostly due to inconsistent playing time, a 624 OPS. Max Kepler, a 651. Otto Kemp, 659. Bryson Stott, 730. Edmundo Sosa, 749. Brandon Marsh, 833. Weston Wilson, in albeit a very short amount of time, compared to everybody else only playing in 9 games during that time, an 1132 OPS. The reason I didn't name guys like Kyle Schwarber, like Bryce Harper, like JT Realmuto, like Trey Turner is because those are the starters. Those are the guys going out there playing every single day. And of the first list that I mentioned, the only person on that list who's not currently involved in some sort of rotation or platoon, whether it be due to injury or another name coming in or Rob wanting to experiment after the trade deadline and promising the guys a little bit of a run of 6 games that turned into 2 weeks. They're all in the middle of a timeshare. And the guy at the bottom of that list in the last 6 weeks is still finding himself with regular everyday at bats. Now, I am not stating all of this to propose that Nick Castellanos needs to be in a platoon. In his career, he's pretty evenly platooned against both guys. I mean, his splits are pretty even against both sides, left and right-handers. This season, even his slug is a little bit higher against left-handers, but everything else, his average and his on base, his expected results are a little bit stronger against right-handers. It really is. uh, Thank you, Martian Lynch, jumping in the comments. Give Casty a standing ovation. Hey, it worked for Trey, right? It worked for Trey. That was a little bit longer of a slump, but it worked for Trey. But really, what this does is it begs the question for me of what happens now, right? We just went over some of the struggles that he's had. He's the only person hitting in that realm over the last 6 weeks who's not part of a timeshare. Okay, we want to talk about maybe the not so obvious fake excuse of why he sat in Texas on Saturday about the hard turf. I heard Todd Zalecki say that he spoke to some people down in Texas. They've never heard about the hard turf down in Texas before. So that's Rob Thompson doing what he does. And Rob Thompson, for all of the things that people criticize him about, the one thing that I've always found, whether it just be from watching the game and watching several managers come through this town now during my life, and on top of that, just speaking to some of the players, he really has a pulse for his players and what buttons to press. And Nick is a guy who wants to be out there every day, but beyond that, almost needs to be out there every day. If he's working in the cage all day, it doesn't feel like he's accomplishing anything. And that's not him saying that. That's me taking that away from other comments and my opinion. So not saying that Nick has ever said that, but he's not accomplishing the same things by not facing live pitching. He's a guy who wants to go in there and figure things out. And he's a veteran with a long track record of being an exceptional hitter who I think to an extent has earned that right. His first year in Philadelphia, when he really struggled out of the gate and was hitting under 200 for an extended period of time, and Topper just kept putting him out there, and things really took off in the second half. That is Topper having a feel for his guys. And if you want to call it maybe not having a great alternative, that's fine too. But he allowed him to work through the challenges in the lineup every day. And this season is sort of the opposite for Nick. He had a very strong start to the season, was hitting 285 into June, a guy who hasn't hit that well. At one point, he was on pace. I think going into June, he was on pace for the best average and on base he's had in a Phillies uniform. After the month of June, he was on pace to have maybe the best season, including better than the season where he received MVP votes just 2 years ago. The guy has... we know what he can be when he's at his peak. But if you look at the last 365 days, it tells a different story that maybe that peak isn't quite what it used to be. And yes, he can peak for a month at a time. But you're at a point in the season now where you don't necessarily have the same amount of leeway that you did early in the season to allow this guy to figure it out by playing every single day. One way to do that is to potentially, and I'm not calling for a full platoon here, but potentially give him 1 or 2 days off, especially during the stretch where they don't have many days off. Give him a day off of his feet. Figure out a way to get him into DH. Figure out a way to just allow him to sit against a tough righty and allow Kepler, who's hot right now, and Marsh to man the corners, and Bader, who's an incredible defender and is hitting both sides well, have him be in center field. Give the guy a day off his feet. And if he's not okay with that, oh well, sometimes you have to press those buttons. And we haven't necessarily seen, outside of the sitting for justified sitting for some comments, and last week where he kind of hid the reason and defended his guy, we haven't really seen Rob Thompson do that. And I'm curious to watch the rest of the season if that's going to be a necessary change. I think that any guy, no matter how competitive they are, no matter how hard they want to be out there, they know that there are few and far between opportunities to win a championship out here. I don't care how good your roster is. Look at what the Dodgers are going through. Everybody talks about how they broke baseball and they're not even in first place in their own division right now. And yes, that has a lot to do with injuries, and that's not what we're here to talk about. But this is an opportunity that this club has to really make a push with some weakened opponents, maybe some surprise opponents in the Brewers and how good the Padres bullpen ended up being, and they added to it at the deadline. But that being said, it really does feel like an opportunity for this team to do whatever it takes to get over that finish line, get that World Series that's been so elusive to them the last few seasons. We see what guys like Taijuan Walker have been willing to do. We see Harrison Bader comes in here and says, I just want to do whatever we need to win. Brandon Marsh, I just want to do whatever we need to win. Weston Wilson comes back up here with a chip on his shoulder. Max Kepler, outside of that one comment, really just kept his head down and worked on what he needed to work on, and he's started to figure things out. The big thing is, are you willing to get past the awkward moment of, look, Nick, maybe you need to take 1 or 2 days off a week against a tougher opponent and just spend the whole day cage work? And it's a full day off. We treat it that way. Rob's really good about, if this guy has a day off, he has the full day off. And let him focus on something else. Let him stay in the clubhouse with Liam and just hang out and talk ball and whatever, hang out with the hitting coach. Have it be a full cage day, all day long, just working on things. Maybe that will fix it, right? I'm not a hitting coach. I don't know what's going to work for the guy, but Rob needs to figure out what else is going to work for Nick Castellanos besides just putting him out there every single day. One option that could occur, and we're going to get into this in depth a little bit more if Cory Nidoh is able to join us a little bit later, because one option, and Martian Lynch, again, thanks for the comments, are we ever going to see Justin Crawford? In theory, that could potentially be a move that they make. Now, it would have to come at the risk of sending somebody else down, and who would that be while everybody else in the outfield mix is very hot at the moment? We also have to worry about, there's going to be a move made shortly when Alec Boehm returns. He seems like he's really hitting the ball well down in AAA. And Crawford's not on the 40-man roster at the moment, so that's going to be another move that they have to consider. So it's not as simple as, hey, the kid's hitting well, so let's call him up. But if he can help your team right now, you figure those things out. I don't think that that's a limiting factor. It's just things to consider. You know, do they finally DFA Max Kepler at the moment where he's hitting as good as he's ever hit? Are they going to send Weston Wilson back down, who's out of options, when has the best OPS on the team in the last few weeks? It is a tough balance to have. And speaking of the guy, because we're going to get into it right now. I was going to save it for a little bit later, but he's ready. Cory, give me the thumbs up if you're good, and I'll bring you on. All right, our guy Cory Nidoh, welcome to the show. Cory Nidoh, once again, not only a lead Eagles writer, we're not here to talk birds, but make sure you give him a follow because he's a lead Eagles writer for us at PSN. Big game this weekend, preseason game against the Browns. Apparently some rough joint practices, but we'll talk about that another day, Cory, because besides those responsibilities, you are also our AAA Lehigh Valley expert for PSN, and you've watched Justin Crawford up close quite a few times, had the pleasure of speaking to him. And with Nick's struggles recently and then maybe needing a spark in the offense, he's not the only one. But what have you seen about Justin Crawford, especially with today's date in consideration? You're muted, buddy. You're not muted on here, though. I think it's something on your end. I don't have you, at least. I cannot. All right, we're going to let Cory figure that out. But Justin Crawford, for those who don't know, it was something about service time. I know he gets to keep his rookie eligibility if he's called up. I heard a noise, but I didn't hear you in particular, Cory. So I don't know if you're. We're going to let him figure it out on the air. I'm going to put you to the back real quick, Cory. Unless you're all set. Give me one more test. Nothing right now. Okay, I'm going to put you on the back burner, but you'll stay in. Once you figure out the audio, I'll bring you back in a moment. Justin Crawford, for those who are unaware, today has been a date that's been in a lot of people's minds. He is a guy who obviously is hitting very well at AAA, and today is a day where it's not necessarily service time manipulation, but they do get some extra time out of him if they were to call him up today. So it really is, this is kind of the day outside of the trade deadline. Cory and I spoke about that previously. This was a day where Crawford could be called up, and it would make a lot of sense for the organization as far as his future availability. We're going to try Cory one more time, bring him back in. Cory, what do you got for me? Nah, nothing, man. But now, yeah, try dropping out and coming back in. We'll let Cory come back in. Anyway, Justin Crawford is definitely a viable option, and it does add some complications to the outfield mix. He's center field. They have him playing some in left field recently. Martian Lynch, not Cory's day. Yeah, not so far, man. Yeah, and there's a lot that has been said about the ground ball rate from Justin Crawford, but his speed is a real weapon, both on the base paths, in the batter's box, in the field. They have talked about wanting to get him every single day at bats. This is an interesting one from Roddy Zod from Alex. Fan of my element and hope he just needs a little bit of a break. He's played it. Whoa, don't like that word. We'll block that one out. But, however, didn't see that before I brought you up, Alex. But it's a good point to be made. He has played a ton. He plays a lot every year. I think he went through that incredible streak earlier this season before getting sat in Miami. It was he's played a lot, and sometimes guys just need to get off their feet. He's not necessarily a guy who wants to hear that, but when you're going through the types of struggles that he is, again, the only guy with a worse OPS since the beginning of July is the backup catcher who's struggled all season offensively and wasn't known as an offensive monster to begin with. It kind of tells you all you need to know. And when everybody else in the outfield is as hot as they've been all season, it's a little bit tougher to justify putting him out there every single day. Again, I am not saying that that he needs to go into full platoon. I don't think when it's a right-handed pitcher, it's Marsh and Kepler in the corners, and when it's a left-handed pitcher, it's Nick and Weston. However, 1 day off a week, 2 days off a week, allow him to get that extra rest, get his mind right, have a moment where he doesn't feel that pressure while he's going through it. Some of the struggles have just been that the chase is way high again. And we're going to get into the chase in the moment because it's not an issue that's just plaguing Nick. It is plaguing the entire team. Cory, we want to bring you back, see if we can get you here. Give me a little test.
Do you have me now?
I do. It's low, but I got you, buddy. So I'm going to back out.
My headphone jack is starting to fizzle out here on my laptop.
That's all good, man. Well, glad we got you a little bit. It is a little quiet, so I'm going to get out of your way and let you talk about Justin Crawford and what today means specifically for the young outfielder.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people expect him to be called up today, but I don't know if that's the case. The team's up in Buffalo. Phillies are in D.C. Yes, it's not a terrible travel day, but if they're going to call him up, I think Monday makes the most sense. Lehigh Valley has that Hilton off day. The Phillies get back. They're hosting Seattle. So give the kid a full day on Monday maybe to get down to Philly, get acclimated, say hi to everybody he needs to, and get acclimated to the clubhouse and the big league style, and then have him available on the bench Monday, put him into the lineup Tuesday if you want. I just don't think today is the day that he gets the call. And you mentioned it. They have to do a little bit more roster crunching than people realize. He's not on the 40-man. So the only way you get Justin Crawford up on this team is to DFA somebody. Now, is it Max Kepler? Seems like the Phillies are really adamant about not doing that. Weston Wilson, you mentioned, out of options, so you can't send him down. And he's been one of the best hitters for the Phillies since getting called back up, so you don't want to take that bat out. Otto Kemp, most likely, I would think, is going to be sent down once Alec Boehm comes back later this week. That just makes the most sense. Do they DFA Romano or Ross? Of those two, I think Ross has the least value of the two arms, especially if you put Walker into the bullpen in the near future. So it's not as easy as, Justin Crawford's hitting 330. He needs to be up. I agree that I think they do need to call him up because at what point does he get the chance? It can't be as bad as what you're getting out of Castellanos and even Kepler, although he's kind of turned things around. But they're also really crowded in the outfield. I mean, you're looking at, if say they DFA Kepler, you're still looking at Crawford, Castellanos, Marsh, and Wilson and Bader. Those are 5 outfielders on the team. And they want Justin Crawford to play every single day. So who's going to be sitting? You're going to go to Castellanos and tell him he's got to be benched for a 21-year-old rookie? That would possibly be the winning move right now. But then you have to deal with some of the antics and the personalities that Nick Castellanos has. He's a longtime veteran. He has a proven track record. He's also very streaky. But I think it's going to take a little while for Crawford to get up. It could be as soon as Monday if they really push it. It makes more sense that they might do it when the rosters expand in September. But again, they still have to DFA somebody. So it's not as easy as snap the finger, one guy goes up, one guy goes down. And I think that a lot of people aren't necessarily grasping that idea because they just are so excited, and deservingly so, to see this kid up at the big league level. I mean, he has been a phenomenal watch at Lehigh Valley. He sprays the ball. Yes, the ground ball rate is low, but talking to scouts, they need him to hit the ball on the ground. If you hit the ball in the air with Justin Crawford's profile, his speed is neutralized. It doesn't matter that he can run like a gazelle because if he's not putting any type of pressure on opposing defenses, his speed doesn't mean anything. So I think he will get called up eventually. I think he's a great piece to come off the bench in September as a pinch runner at the very least. I mean, the guy's got 35, 36 stolen bags, his third straight season of 30 or more stolen bases. So the kid can still do other things I think this team would be looking for in a bench player. But I do know Dave Dombrowski said that, hey, if he gets called up, he needs to play every day.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing to me is it seemed more obvious a couple weeks ago, right? When you had Weston Wilson had only just been called back up. Max Kepler was still struggling. It seemed like an easy, hey, let's just plug the guy in and we'll figure center field out, or he'll be center field and we'll figure left field out. And then even after the trade for Harrison Bader, it still felt like we got 2 guys who aren't really doing much. But all of a sudden, those guys are hitting, and this has become a little bit more of a complex situation. And they didn't call him up when it was ideal to do so production-wise. And they didn't call him up before the trade deadline, and they made a move. And they didn't trade him, and we thought he might be called up, and they didn't call him up either. And now other guys have started to hit, and it's August 15th. And then you mentioned, not saying that anyone's reported this, but nobody reported the 15th either. But like we're looking at these milestones, the 15th, and could it be September 1st? And it's starting to feel a lot more like, although Painter was almost promised, not necessarily promised, but that it was talked about openly by the organization, and fans have wanted to see Crawford called up. It's starting to feel like we're moving the goalpost on like when makes the most sense to get this called up. And I'm at the point now where Cory, is he getting called up at all, right? Is he going to be called up this season at all without an injury or somebody really just falling on their face, even more so than for lack of a better term, Nick has recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Crawford's case, the uptick in offensive production from Max Kepler has thrown a wrench in them because it certainly seems like the front office is not willing to admit that it wasn't the greatest signing. Now, I don't know what fans expected from Max Kepler. If you look at his career numbers, he's like a career 230 hitter. Now, I know he's not hitting that right now, but anybody who came into the season expecting him to hit 260, 270, that wasn't the player they were getting with Max Kepler. So he definitely struggled this year. There's no doubt about it. Front offices don't like to admit that they made a mistake. It's tough to swallow a $10 million mistake, but he's getting into the crunch time right now. I think Crawford does get called up at some point. I just don't know what else he has to do in the minors. And even he's not even being called upon to be the savior. Like, he's going to hit 8th or 9th. He's not hitting leadoff. He's not hitting second. He's going to be the 8 or 9 hitter for the Phillies. So, to me, I think you got to see what he can do against big league pitching. See what kind of spark he provides at the bottom of the lineup. Now, I know the lower third of the lineup has kind of turned things around a little bit. I know the offense has been struggling the last couple of games. But I think at some point you just have to see what this kid has. Because, like you said, they didn't trade him. They didn't call him up right after the deadline. So The question is when, and I think it has to be sooner than later, or a lot of fans are going to be scratching their head and maybe second guessing, well, is he even that good? And to expect a rookie to just absolutely fall out when he first gets called up is also a very high and lofty expectation. I mean, Crawford's not going to hit 330 in the game. He's not going to hit 300 most likely in the game. If he hits 240, 250, provides some speed, the bottom of the lineup he gets on base very well too. I think that's an underrated part of the game. He sees a lot of pitches. I think that could be a really nice tool and weapon for the Phillies in that ninth spot to get the lead off the pan and Trey Turner back up to the dish with runners on base.
Cory, before I jump on the comment, you're fading. I don't know. We barely had you there at the end. Make an adjustment. Stick around for a minute. Comment here from Alex. Ground ball rate would have kept Kenny Lofton in the minors his whole career, and you can argue that he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I agree with that. He's a guy who's been like that. We talked about this in the past too. Like, although it's not a leadoff hitter role anymore, Juan Pierre and Luis Castillo made a lot of money playing that type of game. And even if he doesn't hit 300 for his career, we had an example of a guy who got called up and pitchers didn't have the book on yet, who was hitting 300 in the minors, who came up and hit 300 the season he was called up in Johan Rojas. He did that very recently. I don't know what changed with Rojas. I didn't do enough diving if he changed his game or if it was just now pitchers have tape on him. But there's no reason to think that he couldn't come up and be a very effective player. To assume he's going to hit over 300 is one thing, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did in a short period of time while people don't necessarily have a lot of tape on him.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if my audio is bad, but I don't want to ruin the quality of the show. So if you're not hearing me, I apologize.
I got you a little bit.
I'm laptop might need to be retired. Yeah.
If anybody has a laptop out there to donate to Cory.
So I don't know what the reason is. I don't have my mic today in the office right now, but that's my opinion on Crawford. I don't want to, have your viewers strain their ears trying to listen to what I am. I'm gonna hop off, and always appreciate you having me on. And yeah, keep your eyes out. I don't think it happens today. Could be surprised, but maybe Monday. Monday kind of makes sense with the teams being closer and Phillies being back home. And that can create a lot of excitement right now. I know Philly fans are kind of frustrated right now that they're skidding, but the Mets are absolutely free falling. So the fact that you're 3 in a row and you haven't lost any ground in the division, that you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later for sure. The always wonderful Cory Nidoh, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming in and giving us a little bit on Andrew Painter. Glad we got your mic to work long enough so we could hear you loud and clear on Painter. Appreciate you, man, and we'll talk to you hopefully soon. As Cory said, for anybody who could hear him, he said that Monday could be a realistic day. Today is the day where basically if he were to be called up after today, his rookie status would still be available to him next season. It helps with the amount of time that the team has control over him. And he would have plenty of options. So you could always bring him up, see if he could be a spark. If it doesn't work, you send him back down. But again, with the way that these guys have been hitting, it is a little bit tougher as of late to do that. And to kind of wrap up the Nick-focused part of this, right? So a great comment from Alex here, too. We know as bad as Nick has been, he can carry this team. He's done it before. He did it early in this season. The first time Kyle really struggled, he really turned things on and had a great run, especially that month of June. That was kind of the anti-June Schwarber. Was the first time we saw him struggle in the month of June. That was Nick's best month. He can pick it up when they need to, but I think that he just needs that extra rest. Again, I'm not one who's going to call for a platoon. I'm not calling for them to get rid of him. I'm not calling for any nonsense like that. Nick works his tail off. He's a great clubhouse influence. He helps the young guys so much. Every time you talk to Brandon Marsh or Johan Rojas or Weston Wilson, one of the first people that they mention is how much of an influence Nick Castellanos has had over them. And that is definitely a guy that we want to support as much as we can. So whether it's Martians comment about giving him a standing O, whether it's getting creative with the lineup, whether it's having a real man-to-man conversation with him as the manager, which I'm sure Nick will do behind closed doors. He being the guy to just pull him aside, like, hey man, it's not the end of the world, but this time of year we need to be winning games. We need to keep that lead. We want to put ourselves in an advantageous position when it comes to October ball and getting our guys proper rest. You're doing it with the 6-man. Zack Wheeler's not going to be happy that they're going to a 6-man at least for one turn. He hates that extra day of rest. His numbers show that he doesn't perform as well with that extra day of rest. And that being said, they're all going to be willing to accept it. And hopefully they can talk to Nick about maybe accepting a couple extra days off the rest of the season to help him get right, stay healthy, get out of his head a little bit. He clearly needs it. One thing that I talked about, the chase rate, something that they did so well at earlier this season, staying in the zone. Their strikeouts were down, their walks were up. Well, the chase rate has once again jumped up significantly. If we look through that month of, let's go through the month of May. I originally had it through June. Let's go through the month of May. Nick Castellanos' chase rate was 37.7%, about what he normally does. If we extend it through June, only a little bit higher, 38.4. But as I mentioned earlier, his aggressiveness on that first pitch really jumped up. Looking now, he's at 43.8. And look, that's not the end all be all. Edmundo Sosa's hitting the crap out of the ball right now. August 1st through August 15th, just this month, Nick Castellanos 43.0, Sosa 48.3. He's a pretty free swinger as well. Max Kepler, who has the best walk rate of his career, I believe still, at least earlier this season was on pace for it. He was chasing the ball at a 25.8% clip through the month of June. In the month of August, he's up to 42.6, and he's hitting the ball very well. I want to take a look back to July. I had it sorted for August, but going back through July, a little bit softer for Kepler, 30%. But yeah, that month of August, and this is where kind of the larger conversation about how this team has been struggling as a whole. Kyle Schwarber is having a rough period right now. We know how good he's been. In the month of August, he's slashing 220, 291, 580 slug. So still has, 8 of his 11 hits are for extra bases. He's still hitting the ball well. When he does so with the strikeouts are up, the walks are down, 22 Ks to 4 walks in the month of August so far. 22 Ks in 13 games. It's a lot. He had 28 last month in 23 games. Now, he had an incredible month, but obviously something to keep an eye on. But he's allowed to go through waves when he's carried the team at times the way that he has. I think that the bigger surprise is Bryce Harper. We talked about how good this offense was, and it's been said ad nauseum since Bryce Harper got here. When he goes, the offense goes. Well, so far in the month of August, he has a 3.8% walk rate, 32.1% strikeout rate. He has a 685 OPS, and his fly ball rate is just 24.2. We talked about how fly balls aren't important for Justin Crawford. Hitting the ball in the air is extremely important for Bryce Harper. He has hard hit line drives, home runs. He is a middle of the order bat who needs to be putting the ball in the air, and he's just not doing it right now. A 36.4% hard hit rate this month, the lowest of the season so far outside of April. Really just not a great go of it recently for Bryce. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning, this can't all be on Nick Castellanos. You bring in Harrison Bader, and although he's been splitting time versus playing every day like he did in Minnesota, he's struggled pretty decently. Kyle's not hitting right now. But Nick stuck out, and that's why we led with him. Comment here from John Fisher. Castellanos this season sees the 11th highest rate of pitches out of the strike zone, and he has the 147th highest walk rate. That goes right in with that chase that we talked about. His chase has been up heavily. We know he's a free swinger. We know he's not a big, I'm going to take a lot of walks guy, but if you're not doing damage on those pitches, got to learn to let them go, because this is a obvious distinction to me. You're seeing one of the highest rates of pitches out of the zone and you're not laying off of them. To me, that's a guy who's tired, who's worn, who needs to have a little bit more of a rest here and there. Great note from John. Man, that does stick out a lot, doesn't it? Whew. Yeah, but looking at the chase rate overall, so I took a look at the team, and through the month of May, they were middle of the pack, 28.4, 12th worst in the league, so right in that middle area. Through June, they ticked up a little bit to 10th worst in the league, 28.8, still nothing crazy. And then we get to July. Let's look just at July because we know the numbers through June. I want to take a look at just the July, just July. And they jump all the way to second at 31.3% chase. They're currently worst in baseball in August at 35.4. And that includes that period where they were down in Texas and they looked like world beaters. Really, really good pitching staff down in Texas, and they were doing everything right, it seemed. Hitting the ball the other way, hitting with runners in scoring position, advancing runners, hitting runs, putting runners in motion. They took advantage of a team down there in a place where they haven't been able to win in a very long time. They looked like the offense that was clicking on all cylinders. That is when a lot of these guys had some had a breakout series, and then they get out of Texas, go back to come back closer to home. They had struggled against Baltimore at home, and they go up to Cincinnati and just lay an egg. And I know that, yes, Cincinnati has some good pitchers, and they are a borderline playoff team at this time. And the one thing that I know a lot of fans are getting tired of hearing, regardless of how true it is, well, we faced some good pitching this series. Well, what are you going to face in October? Nobody gets to October with our pitching sucks, but it doesn't happen. Pitching is too good nowadays. And yes, offense is down across the board, but you have some of the highest paid sluggers out there, some guys with long track records of being successful hitters. The excuse cannot be forever. We face some good pitching. One question I would like to pose, and I'm not going to be down there for a little while, and I hope that somebody else would pose it, because it's not to call guys out in a public setting, but it's more to, Rob, we kind of like, you have a group of veterans here. You have a group of many star players. When does we faced good pitching? When is that no longer a valid excuse? Because you're going to face good pitching in the postseason. You lost to good pitching in the World Series. You got no hit in the World Series. Like, you're going to face good pitching in the World Series. And another thing that sticks out is the common excuse of guys are trying to do too much. And while that might be true, and Rob is just telling you what happened, and I'm not in those private conversations, no reporters in those private conversations with coach and the team. But when you have guys who are this level of player, when does it start to click that doing too much can't be a valid excuse? It's when do guys start to figure out how to not do too much when they're star players, being paid as such, held in such high regard across the league? When can you say, hey, stop trying to do too much, and it clicks? Or these guys always play not trying to do too much. And I know whatever, baseball is a long season and always doesn't really mean always, but they seem to find themselves in these stretches where the entire team is trying to do too much at one time. And maybe it's because they faced good pitching, but they're going to see that good pitching in the playoffs. Comment from Alex. What would you like their comments to be instead? We're not good enough. No, because they are good enough. But what does the message need to be? What do you need to see from guys where it can't just be we're trying to do too much? Well, you're paid to do all of it. Like, I don't know. It's it's a tough question because there is no right answer. That's why you don't see reporters asking Rob Thompson that question. It's why I probably won't ask it of him myself. I may talk to some players and get their kind of thoughts and feelings on like, what do you do to not get into that funk as an entire team? No, I didn't remember moments like this in the prior era, in that '07 to 12 era, where everybody seemed to get cold at once. It really did seem like they were trading off. When in the few moments where Ryan Howard was cold, Jimmy picked it up. When Jimmy was cold, Chase picked it up. When Burrow got hot, those guys not took their foot off the gas pedal, but that's when he could carry the team for a couple weeks. And it's man, it's really tough to hear that over and over again. And at the end of the day, I mean, you can always come back to like, well, it's the other guy's job to get them out, right? It's the other guy's job to. My brother and I talk about this all the time. Every time my dad's like, "Oh, you can't, got to get one back," or "Oh man, you scored a run, you can't give one right back." Well, like that, but that's their job. That's what they're trying to do, right? So it's tough to not have a real answer to things and just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. But it's it's to me, it's at least an interesting, like, what does that mean to a veteran, right? We're trying to do too much. How does a veteran like that get out of their own way? I've actually talked to Brandon Marsh earlier this season about kind of what his mentality shift was because of his early season struggles. And he mentioned like not trying to do too much, really just being part of the team, being a team player, knowing that I'm not Bryce and Trey and JT and Kyle. Like I need to set myself up for them. And if the situation calls for it, nobody on 2 outs, or a runner on 2 outs, I'm going to take my hacks, but just staying within myself and knowing that that's not my job. And early in the season, the team did a good job of that. They didn't always, if you remember me, like nobody put the nail in the coffin at times. It seemed like everybody was being too passive at one point. You'd end up with the bases loaded, then nobody would cross. You'd end up second and third, and they couldn't put the ball in the outfield to score the run. But they were getting a lot of people on. Their average was up. Their on base was up, and then their aggression and their slug wasn't there. And as their slug improved, it seemed like their ability to get on constantly against all levels of pitching kind of came up. And that's the balance of baseball, right? How do you constantly do both? If everybody is next guy up mentality, nobody delivers the dagger. And if everybody's trying to deliver the dagger, but then there's nobody on to help support that dagger. So it's this balance and this dance of baseball that makes it wonderful. It's actually kind of why we love it, right? But it's a question that you can't answer. It's a question that I don't expect, if somebody were to ask Rob, for him to have an answer. I don't think that there is no perfect way to do it. You just have to be in tune at the right time. We've seen it a lot. Yes, the season builds up these calluses and builds character and gets you prepared for struggles in those short series in the postseason. But man, it is sometimes it can be frustrating, and this is one of those times. And I think that a way that they could work through it is, again, not fully add him into the rotation of outfielders, but give Nick a couple extra days off, just like they found ways to do. Trey feels a little tight. All right, hey, let's make him the DH for the day. We'll put Sosa out there and put Kyle in left. If you got to put another Kyle in left field day, if you got to have Nick just have the day off for the, there's ways to not punish Nick. It's not a punishment. It's give the guy a break. He's played so often, and we know what he can do when he's hitting right. And just you got to figure out the right language to speak to him. Every single player, you have to be like you have to be like the hitter whisperer. Is Kevin Long that for him? I don't know, but he's done it successfully for other guys, and you just need to hear the right voice or the right thing. Interesting note from Alex. Frustrating to see them struggle. Super hot and super cold. He feels it's because they need more contact guys in the league and less pure power types. It's an interesting thought. Luis Ariz, he's not going to get the big payday anymore, but he is definitely a guy who he has extreme value. That his his likelihood of getting on and putting the ball in play when you need it is a big to do. That's why I think Justin Crawford would be so helpful on this team, is because I don't care hitting 330, but it's all ground balls. That doesn't bother me, right? Because he's done it at every level. If he's hitting 60% ground balls, but he's beating everything out, he's a 21-year-old stud with an incredible athleticism. Let him use it while he has it, right? Like, we've talked about how one of Trey's biggest weapons is his speed, and that doesn't last forever. Well, they asked him to use it this season more often while he still has it. So maybe Justin Crawford is the answer, but I don't think he's the savior of the season. The thing that saves the season is Kyle and Bryce and Trey and Nick and those middle of the order guys who are being paid to be there. They hit when it matters most. So we're not going to solve this thing in one day. Alex and myself and John and Cory and Marsh and Lynch, we're not saving it for sure, right? Us five here in this chat, the 78 viewers right now we got all across socials, we're not the ones to figure it out. But it is an interesting thought. The curious case of Nick Castellanos as I've seen it put. I think it was actually put that way by one of our guys. We've done some pieces on Nick. Curious case of Max Kepler was from Justin Crosby on the PSN team, because Kepler's been hitting the ball well, and it's almost like the same piece to be written about Nick Castellanos. So keep your eyes out. I'll be putting that one out shortly. We talked all about the hitting, but the thing that everybody said, well, when the hitting goes cold, at least we have this. Fans across the league saying, at least we have this. Starting pitching. Let's talk about it. The starting pitching has been the strength of this team for years now. Unfortunately, they have struggled as of late. I think I heard a 4.50 ERA since the All-Star break. I'm going to go in and confirm that. But not an ideal situation for a team that really rode the starting pitching as much as they have this season. Zack Wheeler has had his struggles as of late. That's the main reason that they're going to the 6-man rotation, in my mind, is to see a 3.95 since July 12th. So not the best. They had the best on the season of 3.16 in the month of August. That's for a team. Let me go to the correct role here, folks. Sorry. Let me go to starting pitching. ERA, starting pitchers ERA since the beginning of August. The Phillies, a 3.50 since the beginning of August. Let's go back to that All-Star break. Oh, man. Yeah, let's pull up. Yeah, okay. So since the break, I got that. Did I get that right? I got that right? No, I did not. Since the break, we're going to go. We got it, folks. We got it. Working on the fly here. Didn't have a chance to do full normal prep for this week. Phillies a 4.07 ERA since that date. Excuse me, since the All-Star break. On the season, their starter ERA is 3.43. Before the All-Star break, it was a 3.25, the best in baseball. So it's the thing that it sticks out a little bit more when the offense struggles, when the starting pitching that has been the best weapon on the team is also struggling. It's a little bit of a catch-22. You usually need one to go while the other struggles in order to stay strong. They've been able to survive. They're not falling off a cliff like the Mets starting pitching has, for example. And we'll get into the Mets in depth in a moment, but they do have some reinforcements coming. And as a result, they're going to run a 6-man rotation for a little bit. Alex with the comment, Nola back, plenty of rest. He looked electric in his last AAA start, 11 strikeouts, struck out the side 3 times. Should be a big boost. Should be able to let him run a little bit with a lot of time off. I know he's coming back from the injury, but he seemed really refreshed down there in AAA. Now, everybody assuming that he's going to be the savior. He did struggle often before he got put on the injured list. Yes, it could have been that he was dealing with some things, and that rest could be the perfect medicine. So we'll have to see what he looks like when he returns. But that is a strong option to be adding back into your rotation this late in the game. Taijuan Walker's been pitching his tail off as of late. 3.23 ERA since being put back into the rotation. He is justified keeping a spot in the rotation while there's been some struggles, and this 6-man will give them some extra time off. We've talked ad nauseum about how many innings these guys have thrown. Luzardo's already thrown more innings than he has in any other season outside of one in his career. Comment from Alex, Nola is pitching on Sunday. Wheeler hasn't missed a start in a very long time. He's put on more and more innings almost every season since joining the Phillies. Aaron Nola, same thing, but again, a long time off not throwing, so he should have plenty of rounds left in the chamber, if you will. The Ranger Suarez, curious case. What's going on with him? Does he just get tired in the second half when the humidity gets up and needs some time to recover? What's going to happen there? Christopher Sanchez seems to be the only person who's not slowing down. He's basically inserted himself and potentially replaced Zack Wheeler in the Cy Young race. Paul Skeens is going to have to face the Brewers a couple more times if he wants to take over. But Christopher Sanchez has pitched lights out, and even he has thrown more innings the last 2 seasons than ever before in his career. So it's a challenge to navigate that. And one of the things that has plagued them as of late is guys will have a really strong first few innings, and as the game goes on, they'll run into some problems. Zack Wheeler goes for that 9th inning. That is what Rob Thompson blamed for Zack needing his last start pushed back, was the fact that he went that 9 innings. It wasn't the 100 pitch stressful 6th inning outing. It was the outing before that where he threw 100 and some odd pitches and went the complete game against the Reds in the one hitter. He said it, and this is going to be another balancing act. And with the additions that they're getting to the bullpen, it should be easier to navigate this. But it's more about the commitment. We know that I mentioned it earlier in the stream. Rob Thompson is a player's manager. And one thing that players managers get in trouble on sometimes, it's not the downfall of Rob Thompson, because this team is a very good team and he's a very good manager. But one of the things that player managers get stuck in a lot is trusting their players too much, or allowing their players too much leeway because you have faith in them, you love them, you're with them every single day, and you trust them as men, you respect them as men. That should happen anyway, right? But there's a little bit extra level with a guy like Rob Thompson. We saw it a lot with Charlie Manuel as well. Maybe sticking to certain plans or certain things with guys to a fault because he knows that guy so well and he knows what it'll mean to him to get to that certain level. A perfect example is Jesus Luzardo last night. They ended up losing 3-2. Luzardo pitches in great, strong 6 innings, only allows 1 run, only at 83 pitches. And Rob Thompson earlier in the week said that maybe I need to take the ball out of these guys' hands when they want to go out for 7, 8, or 9. Even it's so tough to do when they have low pitch counts. And I know how badly these guys want it, but that's going to have to be something I manage to help rest these guys a little bit more for the stretch run. And unfortunately, last night is a perfect example of where that may have been the case. You had 83 pitches. The guy looks incredible. Still, at the end of the day, only give up 3 earned runs, and they should be able to beat the Nationals with a quality start from Jesus Luzardo. But when he starts that inning, walk. Okay, we need to get somebody ready right now. Wasn't quite ready yet. The double, Kirkring was going to be ready for a right-hander coming up, but it goes walk, double, walk, and all of a sudden a really good outing looks like it could spell disaster. Kirk did a great job of working around things as much as he could, but that is an almost impossible situation to be put in. Those runs he gives up 2 runs on the single. Those 2 runs do get charged to Luzardo's line. So Kirkring not penalized, but he's going to feel bad for himself going out there and not being able to shut the door. We talked about it, his ERA. He doesn't care about his ERA. He wants to shut the door when he's put out there to do so, and it did not happen once again last night. So inherited runners are a little bit tough when it's bases loaded, nobody out. Again, that's a near impossible situation to ask a guy to come in to do. And the game may look very differently if Thompson has the conversation with Luzardo. Hey man, you pitched great. Let's leave on a good feeling. I'll pull you back. We have enough depth in the bullpen now. We're going to go Kirk clean in the seventh, and that game likely ends differently with a Phillies victory. So that's going to be interesting to watch for me the rest of the way. It doesn't matter how strong they're throwing. Is Thompson going to go out there and make, we like the matchup if we put Kirk out there right now or Strom out there right now in a clean inning, as opposed to having them mop up some potential problems that come. Now, there's plenty of times where it's paid off. Sanchez goes 9 clean, great complete game earlier in the year. Wheeler has the awesome complete game, one hitter in Philly. It just didn't. You see the ripple effects from it, and Rob specifically has pointed to that game as a reason why he may need to implement that, and I think it's time that he starts implementing that. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry, folks, getting over a sinus infection. But yeah, it's interesting to watch. We put this comment in here earlier, and I hate to. He's probably left already, but Martian brought this way earlier when we were talking about the offense. But should we be worried about Wheels? And I think one or two more starts like that, and yes, I'm getting worried. And I think that one way that you can help that is the 6-man rotation. I think if they didn't make that move, I would be a little bit more worried going into his next start. I think that it's the diminished velocity is always a concern for me, because it usually means dead arm. Dead arm could be two things. It could be tired. It could be potential underlying issue. So that's the thing that I want to watch closely. Ranger Suarez also some diminished velocity. The imaging on Zack came back clean, so I'm not too concerned about a long-term injury. The big thing is whether they go. How long they go with the 6-man. I know that they're going to do it at least one time through. If Walker has to go back to if he has to go back to the bullpen, it is what it is. Right now, we're lining up Zack Wheeler tonight. Obviously, going to be watching that one closely against Mackenzie Gore, who has given the Phillies problems in the past. Taijuan Walker staying in the rotation, pitching tomorrow afternoon. Although it says TBD on the website, but they did confirm Aaron Nola will pitch Sunday against Mitchell Parker to close out the series. And then when they return home, you'll see Ranger against Seattle. And then they'll go Sanchez and Luzardo there. So that's your 6-man right there. We'll have Zack tonight, Taijuan tomorrow. They will have Nola confirmed on Sunday, Ranger confirmed Monday, and then they'll go back to Sanchez, Luzardo, and come back around to Zack. We wanted to get into this before we left, and I know we're getting close to the hour. So, Alex, I definitely want to touch on this for a moment. I don't have the latest numbers. This is from an ESPN article from 2 days ago, so it's very possible that these numbers are even worse. But one thing that we've talked about on this show in the past, especially when we had the Mets series, and John Fisher came up with he's normally our stat guy. He threw in there just who's the one start. I'm going to look up the Mets depth chart real quick, but we've talked about how it just felt unrealistic that their starting pitching would continue to be as good as it's been. And the struggles, whether it be through injuries, whether it be through guys revealing who they really are, they are in a position now where, it just looks ugly in New York right now when it comes to starting pitching. Let's see. Is he injured at the moment? There was a specific injured pitcher. Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning is the guy. So normally we talk about starting pitchers, and John Fisher usually goes heavy on stats. I think the day we were talking about Griffin Canning and how he's had some surprising success, I think the note from John Fisher was Griffin Canning stinks. So, John, not to throw you under the bus, but you're tied to that one because you're usually so stat heavy, and man, it's just. Yeah, it's just pretty crazy. Alex with a comment here, and I was going to get to this shortly, but we'll talk about it. Their starters haven't gone a full 6 innings since June, except for one, and I believe it was David Peterson. Yeah, David Peterson, I believe, is the only one who's gone 6 innings in that stretch. This is not including the last 2 days. And apologies, I didn't have this ready, but they rank. Since June 13th, the Mets starters ranked 28th in ERA with a 4.99 ERA and 29th in innings pitched. There he is, bringing his own support back. I stand by what I said. Griffin Canning stinks. Well, way to insult a guy when he's on the injured list, John. I mean, come on. But you make a good point. He's pitching like people expected him to pitch nowadays. Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga, they have not performed as well as we talked about. It might be perfect timing for those guys to be coming off the injured list because some of these other guys like Griffin Canning and Peterson and Tyler McGill were pitching above their heads. They were pitching more than anybody really better than anybody had really expected. And to have Manaea and Senga coming off the injured list, it was like, man, right before these guys plummet, boom, we can have these two guys step back into the rotation and really. And another great comment from John. I'm going to bring it up. He was what we thought he was, and we let him off the hook. Well, not quite, because the rest of the rotation has not stepped up in his place. Clay Holmes, who I talked about, I was surprised how successful they were in converting him to a reliever. He hasn't recorded more than 16 outs in an outing in more than 2 months. Frankie Montas had one strong start when he came off the injured list, and his numbers are looking exactly how they did during his rehab stint, a 6.38 ERA, basically out of that rotation now. Again, Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Sean Manaea, they're also dealing with some injuries. That there's not enough can be said about injuries to a starting rotation can deplete a team. Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill, both on the injured list at the moment. Sprained elbow for McGill. We'll have to see what that looks like when he comes back. Griffin Canning's done for the year. He ruptured his Achilles tendon. So, wow. Yeah, to put a strict number on it, we mentioned in a recent stretch, 56 games, one starting pitcher completed 6 innings, and here I am complaining that Luzardo was left in too long into the 7th inning. It's tough as a Phillies fan to really ever complain about starting pitching when they have such a depth of guys who can really support that rotation. Man, one player completed 6 innings in the last 56 games for the Mets. Not ideal. We know what their bullpen can be. They traded for a lot of great arms. Ryan Helsley, Tyler Rogers being added to that mix, Gregory Soto being added to that mix. Frankie Montas and Paul Blackburn may have to go back and forth a few times. We'll see what that looks like. But to bridge to Edwin Diaz, they made so many improvements. And the question is, can they get far enough into a game to get to that bridge? Their starting pitching has fallen off big time. And it is not. Well, I think I had it up earlier. Yeah, let me bring it up. Starting pitcher ERA, the Mets, because of how well they started, still near the top of the league overall, 7th in the league at a 3.77. But since, would you say June 13th it was? June 13th we'll go with, just to hurry this thing along because we're going to wrap up the show shortly. June 13th, starting ERA for the Mets, a 5.30 ERA for the Mets. Only 4 teams worse than them: the Cardinals, the Braves, who are basically throwing their entire AAA starting staff at this point due to injuries. The Nationals, a 5.92, who beat the Phillies last night, and the Rockies, the ever struggling Rockies, who don't seem to figure out starting pitching since Ubaldo Jimenez all those years ago in the early 2010s. Yeah, just Not a good showing of things for the Mets. And you want to, so to tie it back into the Phillies, you would feel like this is the perfect time to take advantage and put those guys out of their misery, right? Just bury the Mets. We talked about burying the Braves a few weeks back and how the Mets didn't live up to that. You had a chance to bury the Mets this week if you didn't struggle how you did with around the Texas series. A chance to really put some ground between you. On the flip side, you've lost 3 games in a row and you've lost no ground. You're still 5 games up on the New York Mets in the division. You still have 69 wins. You're still 17 games above 500, and it's almost like you struggling at the same time as the Mets struggle. Um, it was a perfect timing for the Phillies. If you're going to go through some struggles, I guess it's the time when the guys who are chasing you are also struggling. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch the rest of the way. The Phillies have a big. They got to finish up in Washington. They normally do well down there. They have plenty of time. 3 games left. This could be a 3-1 series when we look back at it, and all of a sudden we're talking about who cares that we struggled against Lord on a Thursday after some travel trouble. It's going to see. It's going to seem like there's struggles day in and day out, but when they have the second best record in the National League. Third best record in baseball. Nope, not that one. Third best record in baseball. You're still feeling pretty good about a team. You have every right to feel uncomfortable during struggling moments, especially when those moments especially when those struggles rather seem to be similar struggles that have plagued the team when it matters most in the past. They have 6-7 weeks to figure this out still. They have 6-7 weeks to get themselves right, to get the offense right, to get the lineup right, to get the pitching staff right, everybody be healthy. There is time left in the season. Yes, what we are here doing, what you are here watching, is us expressing ourselves, talking about our favorite sport, talking about baseball, talking about the ins and outs. It's what we love about the game, the up and down, the chess match, the mental aspect of it. I know that that's what I love about the game. I know that that's what Alex and John, who've been in the comments all show, love about the game. And we got 6 weeks of that mental grind left, boys. So let's give it up for Cory. I know he struggled through some of those technical difficulties, but give it up for Cory. A nice little report on Justin Crawford and what we could see from him. But in the meantime, they're going to have to take a look at this lineup and see what's working, what's not. Rob has pushed the right buttons quite often as of late, and hopefully he can do the same thing with Nick Castellanos, because we know what he means to that lineup. Whether he's hitting 5th, 6th, 7th, if he's in that lineup every single day, and he's right, the lineup is as dangerous as anyone's. So Nick, hopefully he can get right. Hopefully Rob can get those things right with him and press the right buttons. But if it means that a few other guys need to get in there from time to time, that's quite all right. So again, to wrap things up, I am not calling for a Nick Castellanos platoon. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not calling for a platoon. I am calling for a couple extra days rest for a veteran guy who's been out there almost every single day for the last 4 seasons. Nick, hopefully he can get right. If you want to give him a standing O in your living room or down at the ballpark on Monday, that is your prerogative. Big series against Seattle coming up on Monday. We'll see how they do against another staunch pitching staff in the Seattle Mariners. That about wraps up my time, guys. I am going to go on a nice little vacation for the weekend. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Great numbers throughout the show. Great comments throughout the show. This is a place of love for the game, love for each other, love and respect for each other. And we just celebrate the game of baseball here and celebrate Phillies baseball specifically. So appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back next week at our normal time, 2 p.m. Appreciate everybody adhering to the last minute adjustment. 2 p.m. for Alley Talk on Philly Sports Network. Like I said, give me a follow down there at Kyle Fisher45 on all the socials, IG, X, and Blue Sky. We'll have everything good to go on there, all Phillies content related. I'm going to be working on a little piece just diving into Castellanos and what some of the options might be in the coming days, but a nice little weekend off. So hopefully Nick does well. I don't even need to write it. That would be ideal, right? But check us out at Philadelphia SN on X, at Philly Sportsnet on Blue Sky. You can check me out on YouTube as well at Kyle Fisher Media, posting all my content there. If you need a little gift for your young ones, go get the Baseball Encyclopedia by King Fisher. Because us crack Phillies writers at the PSN Phillies squad, we helped write that little thing. So myself, Matt, Alec, and Liam, the big boss man, helped put that thing together. If you so desire to have a nice little gift for your young ones, it's a nice little read. Heavy on the pictures, but heavy on the information too. So if interested, you can pick that up online as well. And I can tell you all about it if you tweet me. That about wraps us up for this episode. Appreciate all the love, appreciate the support, appreciate the views, appreciate all of you. We love baseball, and we will see you next week here on Alley Talk.